Live from somewhere in California, it's Monday Night Chaos. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends of all ages. Welcome to Monday Night Chaos. I am your intrepid host, Yellkaos, and I would like to raise a hearty glass to each and every one of you, welcoming you to our weekly program. Want to thank each and every one of you for coming out. Got a lot to talk about tonight. I'd like to, before we get too far along, I'd like to make it known that this segment of Monday Night Chaos is brought to you by the Fuck Tom Petty Foundation. For those of you who don't know, the fine folks that represent the Tom Petty of Heartbreaker fame decided to see, because this program, let me explain myself before we get too far along and you guys have no idea where I'm going. You probably never have any idea where I'm going, but you know, we got to make do with what we have. Anyway, for those of you that don't know, which is probably most of you, this show is going to be mostly about taking your questions from the fine people way out there, but also this was going to be a show, I have to admit, expressing my disdain for the 2015 World Wrestling Federation Royal Rumble. We're going to talk about that a little bit because I have to make my feelings known. I really do. I find that this is something that needs to be discussed, and not something that I had high hopes for, but we'll get into that shortly. But as I mentioned earlier, this part of the program brought to you by the Fuck Tom Petty Foundation, because I got up this morning with the express intention of putting together a great show for each and every one of you people who are nice enough to show up each and every week when we do this program. I woke up this morning and got my pen and paper together, and I said, that's right, it's time to write the show. And I was going to put together a few things, and, mostly going to be about the Royal Rumble, obviously. And, of course, strolling through the news this morning, which I try never to look at the news, but the first thing that pops up in front of the news is that Tom Petty of, as I mentioned earlier, Heartbreaker fame, he apparently won some sort of restitution lawsuit to receive royalties from a soul singer named Sam. Oh, shoot, I can't remember his name now. If anybody can remember, please drop it in the discussion box down below. What was his name? Sam Smith or something like that. I can't. Now I feel like a jerk. This was going to be my whole soapbox proposition here, and I forgot who I'm defending. But anyway, the representation of Tom Petty has successfully sued the whoever it is that controls whatever goes on with Mr. I think it's Sam Smith. Oh God, I've totally messed this up now. You'll never take me seriously after this. Anyway, alleging that one of his songs, I won't name the song, even though I had heard the song earlier last year and thought, that's not a very good song. Why is this a hit? And now I understand that Tom Petty and his legal team alleged that song sounds far too much like a song that he recorded and released 26 years ago in 1989. A song that no one cares about and no one remembers. I remember because my dad used to play it all the time, for better or for worse. And apparently the song Won't Back Down versus this song, I think it's called Stay With Me, alleging that they are too similar. And Tom Petty, rich, old, white Tom Petty, who was rich, old, and white, long ago, long before this ever happened. So it goes to show you, I don't really think he's hurting for the cash, and goes to show how much he really cares about freedom of expression and creation of virtually anything in this country. He's become just another old white man, but alleging that this song is far too similar to his song. I've listened to the songs. I've heard the songs. And I said earlier on my Facebook and on the social media, one of my talking points was that you cannot copyright a chord progression. And now, having gone back and listened a little bit closer, the songs are in different keys. And when the songs are in different keys, they're no longer a chord progression. Chord progression, if you don't know about music, is very specific to the key that you're playing in. So what the music business mastermind, Tom Petty, has led all of us to believe, musicians alike and not musicians, that he owns a specific harmonic interval in the language known as music. I'm gonna let that sink in for just a minute. Okay, now that we've done that, so Can you imagine the audacity of this rich, old white man who sang the Christmas song from Home Alone 2? Had the balls, I guess next he's going to tell us that he fucking owns Christmas too, has the balls to say that he owns the harmonic interval between a G major and an E minor. Friends, I want to tell you that is balls that I cannot describe. Those kind of balls you have to carry around with you in a wheelbarrow. That's some serious testicular integrity to walk around and allege to the unknowing masses that you can do that. That's fascinating to me. Much like when you hear people try and associate catchphrases with themselves, like, motherfucker, you don't own words. Before we get too far along, I also want to let everyone know that tonight's language, the language in tonight's program, may be a little blue, might be a little coarse. So if you are the type of person that is not hip to the coarse language, you're free to go. You're free to leave now. So I want you to know that. You're free to go. Just like you're free to turn off YouTube videos. So any of my program or anything that you watch, you're free to turn it off. I've never understood, because there's certain people, before I finish this thought, there's certain people who are in the discussion box down below, bitching and complaining about YouTubers. I'm not going to name names. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But bitching and complaining about YouTubers and YouTube videos and how their videos are somehow ruining the world/internet. You are free to turn these things off anytime you want. And I recommend you do it before you split a seam or have a fucking aneurysm. Because I want you folks to know that the leading cause of, mental distress, the leading cause of mental illness on this planet is unhappiness. And if you're unhappy, go do something else. I mean that sincerely and honestly. If you're unhappy, go do something else, because you're going to have a fucking aneurysm and they're going to find you dead with blood coming out of your ear on your bathroom floor. Is that what you want? No, that's not what you want. So get yourself, some Skittles, taste the motherfucking rainbow, listen to some Tom Petty, and have yourself a good old time. Anyway, so yeah, the rich white people that represent the rich white man that is Tom Petty have taken it upon themselves to strike a great blow against creativity and a great blow against music itself. Congratulations, you motherfuckers, for, helping to prop up the stagnation, the celebration of the stagnation of the music business that has been going on for the better part of, let's face it, my entire lifetime, and chances are your entire lifetime. So if I didn't get my point over clearly enough, let me just recap with fuck Tom Petty. Anyway, welcome to the program. Before we get to the humorous portion of tonight's show, I want to welcome everybody and remind you that if you haven't done so already, please check. There's a box right beneath my head, right beneath my head, where you can find all the links to find out what I'm doing. I'm on the Facebook. I'm on the Twitter. I'm trying to be funny on there as best I can. So, and I hope you guys appreciate it, because I do it for each and every one of you. And for myself, this I do for myself, but that what comes from this, I do for you. And don't forget about that. And sorry if I'm looking a little unkempt this evening. I don't know. You guys don't care if I don't shave, so what difference does it make? We could sit around and get upset about it, but why? When we could just sit around and have a good time. So, going to be taking your questions, your comments, your concerns over this hour, or however long we go. We try to keep it to an hour around here because, I don't want to start to suck or anything. I might be sucking right now. I'm not sure. I have no applause or laughter to gauge these things. So I'm just assuming that you're sitting there with your Coke and you're just laughing your dick off at good old Yellkaos, just making jokes at Tom Petty and other rich white people's expense. So, but anyway, I appreciate it. And I thank you, each and every one of you, for coming out to see it. So I'm sure all the usual suspects are in here, like Majesty ZX and Pilot Amorore and all those people bitching and complaining about the Naruto anime for some reason. Again, if you don't like it, you can simply turn it off. I know Naruto sucks. I know, that's why I turned it off. I didn't have room in my life. Turn off Naruto and put on Totoro. That's the best advice I could possibly offer. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it anymore. which is probably why, yeah, it looks like we're losing viewers right now. But that's okay. That's all right. You know, then fuck those people. We didn't need those people anyway. They're the one that's making the internet run all slow anyway. We don't need that bullshit. So anyway, I'm gonna go through the comments and questions here real quick before we get to the Royal Rumble discussion, because I don't want to overload you guys too soon. I want to take some time, because you guys, as I've said on previous editions of Chaos Tonight and Monday Night Chaos and on the Hate Bit podcast and all the other things that I do, the discussion box always seems to take on a life of its own, and I always appreciate that, because if I'm not being interesting, you guys can at least entertain yourselves. And that's the sign of a positive and proactive society. Folks that are able to entertain each other. Because these corporations ain't fucking doing it. They want you to believe that they entertain you, but really they just take your money. So, yeah. Speaking of taking your money, I meant to bitch and complain about this a little bit. I'll talk about it right now, actually. You guys know, well, this is kind of a hard way of going at it, but Mrs. Yellkaos and I, we were having a look at, I've noticed that a number of people that I've recently become acquainted with in one way or another are big fans of going to Disneyland. Now, here in Southern California, that's not an uncommon thing. What is an uncommon thing, because of property taxes and this vehement police state that we are beginning to be involved in here, because fines and legal fees are just another word for taxes, and that's what our police do around here. They take your money away. So money is hard to come by in Southern California. You'll find some rich fucks around here, but I'm surprised when people have as much money to spend as they do. Mrs. Yellkaos and I were looking at what it costs to get into Disneyland now. And I'm sure there's some people in here who's watching that this is probably completely first world West Coast problems. But I know we have some people in here from the Midwest, never been over to Disneyland, but Disneyland is fucking expensive. That's why they don't advertise on my channel, you know, because I tell you these things. Disneyland is fucking expensive. Mrs. Yellkaos and I were looking at what it would cost to spend the weekend at Disneyland, and it was cheaper. I won't give you the specifics. It's kind of boring, but we compiled that for us to stay 2 nights at Disneyland and go to Disneyland both days and eat and all that stuff cost 3 times as much as our most recent Las Vegas trip. We went to another state and stayed and did all that stuff for almost 5 days for 1/3 of what it cost to go to Disneyland for a weekend. That was shocking. It really, really, really was. You know, I mean, I guess I mean, they didn't build that thing with no budget, so the money had to come from somewhere. I just thought that was kind of shocking. I'm not sure why I shared that. I just want you to know that if you go to one of the Disney properties, may the buyer beware. Let me see here. Who's in with us tonight? We got all the usual suspects are in here. Marc-Andre below. I think I messed that one up. Kid Sure You Can's here. He's looking for the beer. Lewis Williams, Medici ZX, Kit 171, all those fine people. I really appreciate that everyone making I was gonna say make the drive, but you guys didn't make the drive. You're sitting on your ass with your Mountain Dew and your chips. Both of them poison. As much, if not more so, than the poison in my hand. But I'm going to answer a few questions before we get into the Royal Rumble discussion, because I got to calm down. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my mind here. But let me see. Kit 171 says, Chaos, do you like the Dynasty Warriors series, and what one do you like the most? Are they different? I've played a handful of them on the PlayStation 2. And they're all essentially the same thing. You hold 2 swords and you run around and thrash the shit out of everything. It's it's just like, it's just like, third person Rampage, I guess. What can you say? I'm sorry to say, but I am of the mind that you played one Dynasty Warriors game, you've played them all. Sorry. Let me see here. All aboard the Hate Bit Choo Choo. You guys still remember the Hate Bit? I think I've talked about this before. I've talked about it with Kid Shoryuken. He can vouch for this. That you guys remember everything. You guys can remember when Silent Rob was on the Hate Bit podcast and living aboard the Hate Bit Choo Choo, which was years ago. It's like having my very own, like, I have like a greatest hits catalog of just shit I've said over the years. And I think it's fantastic. And I want to thank each and every one of you for having such a long memory, because the internet has such a short memory. And for you guys to remember those things, to take the time out of your day to remember those things, that's really special. Thank you. Thank you, each and every one of you. Dean Thomas wants to know if there's any racing games I like besides Mario Kart. Yes, F-Zero. And the other being the Jet Moto series. Speaking of which, somebody asked me, I lost it. My favorite game soundtracks, and I was going to immediately say F-Zero for the Super Nintendo. But then the other one that fits on there, and I've gushed about this soundtrack before, a work by a single track, Jet Moto 2 for the original PlayStation, especially the intro theme. It's really cool, and I hope to remix some of those tracks. I'm getting more and more interested in electronic music as time goes on, so I hope to really remix some of those tracks and incorporate that in some of my music in the future. And I hope you guys will be there to experience it when it finally does happen, because you guys are going to start hassling about where's my solo album and all that stuff. And I think I've explained that. Takes time to make a record, and especially when you're dealing with flaky assholes in Southern California. If you lived in Southern California, you'd understand the flakiness. Let me see here. The pilot wants to know, did you ever get a chance to see George Carlin live when he was alive? That would be interesting to see him live after he was dead. I wish I could tell people that I saw George Carlin live after he died. No, actually, I didn't. I was working at, there's some people that might know, but probably in like 2005, I was working at a theme park in Southern California called Knott's Berry Farm. And during the Halloween season, which is late September to like the first couple of days of November, they do something called Not Scary Farm's Halloween Hunt, and I worked that for a number of years. And one year, I think it was in 2005, a friend, my good buddy Tony, he said, "Hey man, Carlin's coming to the Long Beach Convention Center. You want to go?" I said, "Fuck yeah, when?" And it was on a night we had to work. I'm like, well, I mean, we could play hooky. I up to that point, I had been with the company for like 6 years, and I had never skipped work ever. And I figured, fuck it, they owe me. I can miss a day of work, all that, and all that, working 2 other jobs while I'm doing this. I'm like, I can miss one of my jobs for one fucking day, which is a terrible way to spend your 20s. Let me be perfectly honest about that. If you work more than one job and you're in your early to mid 20s, knock that shit off. I mean, if you got, cut down on some of your bills or something, because your youth should be spent doing something other than working for fucking money. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your youth for something as common as money. All right. But anyway, and I said, fuck it. Can you get the tickets? He goes, yeah, I can get the tickets. I'm like, all right. So he's going to get the tickets. And then when he says, hey man, they're sold out like 3 weeks in advance. It's sold out. And the Long Beach Convention Center, he was at the Center for the Performing Arts, is not a small building, and it's sold out. And I was kind of bummed out about that. And then on my 25th birthday, George Carlin was taken from us. And I think about that a lot, actually. But the one chance again, I mean, not like I was going to get to meet him or anything, or maybe, I don't know how his shows worked. I never seen Carlin live, but obviously, if I'm telling the story like this. And but I think about that every so often. I was like, man, I really wish I could have gone to see him. But on the other hand, seeing him on HBO was probably better, because I can watch it over and again, and I've learned things from those shows and those specials. Plus, by that time, a lot of his audience were old people, and the last thing you want at a concert experience is to smell Ben Gay and reefer. Trying to think if there's anything else associated with old people, but Ben Gay and reefer seems to cover the gamut. So no, I didn't, but there's a story for you. Let me see here. Sigma Sean wants to know, what do I think about Nintendo's lack of inventory for retailers lately with the Amiibo Smash bundles, the Majora's Mask 3DS, blah, 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 blah. That's not really an instance of a lack of inventory. Those are limited edition. The Smash Pack, all of this you can blame on scalpers. All of this you can blame on opportunistic what was the word I was going to use? Just opportunistic speculation is what you can really blame this on, because you have people buying 2 of everything because the TV has convinced them that because something is old or in demand now, it's going to be valuable in the future. Too many of you fucking people, and I'm not pointing directly at you people, but too many of the fucking people that look at the internet believe the bullshit that is American Pickers and Storage Wars and Pawn Stars. It is fake television. And this is wrecking your economy. Well, actually, I think it's artificially stimulating your economy for a short time. But these, for the most part, those are limited edition items, and you can blame scalpers for that. Do I really think that anything should be done about it? No. That's just the nature of the market. I have grown. I want to talk about the Amiibo for a second, because I have really, really grown fucking tired of the weepers of the internet, not just the Nintendo fanboys, which is, I'm sure, who you guys want me to put the boots to and shoot on. But no, I'm going to shoot on virtually everybody that acts like a supplier shortage is something that is being done to you. You are not being tortured. No one's doing the titty twister. No one's hooking up fucking a car battery to either of your testicles. That's not what's going on here, okay? You have people taking advantage of the fact that corporate retailers are losing their ass and need to sell as much as they possibly can. Not to mention the corporate retailers just don't care anymore because they're losing business to the internet and a number of other places. But we can discuss that some other time. That's a much broader discussion. But I've grown tired of people thinking that everything is being done to them. Nothing is being done to you. The only thing being precipitated on a large scale is being done to you is nuclear warfare, and we're not there yet. All right? That you didn't get the Amiibo, I'm terribly sorry, but you are not afflicted with a disease. There is not any reason why some sort of moralistic avenger should come to your aid because you couldn't get out of bed, or because somebody used unfair trade practices to garner a whole bunch of toys. Let's get this straight. They're toys. You could spend your money on something else. Well, I didn't want something else. Trust me, there's going to be a new Nintendo Direct in like 4 weeks, and then you're going to want something else. Believe me, I know. All right? This too shall pass. All right? I know you really wanted the Amiibo of the Rosalina with the Luma. I get it. It's not the end of the world. However, it will be for the next few days. But you'll get over it, I assure you. So that's how I feel about that sort of shit. Calm down. Goddamn. Put your money in something else. And if you don't, save it for once. Save your money for, granted, it might, if you save it for too long, it's not going to be worth what it was when you started saving it. But the point is, sit on it for a while. Want something. There's far too many people. There's far too much of this. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. Give it to me now. When if you really just take your time and sit on something and, the want to experience something is a lot of what makes other things satisfying. That's really why things come across as so unsatisfying, because everybody wants to appeal to you now. And what do you get when you get instant gratification? You get dull feelings and crapola. Much like the Royal Rumble of 2015, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, but I want to take at least one or two other questions before we get on the way here. On with the rest of the program. Sorry, I trailed off there for a second. I'm trying to read and talk to you guys at the same time. That's why I need a sidekick. But sidekicks are expensive, and my wife is at work. Let me see here. Okay, and now I have a bunch of old people talking about how young kids are way too entitled. I guess, but if you're my age, you were fucking entitled to for a short period. The technology wasn't there, because you had people blowing smoke up your ass, especially if you're from North America. Maybe not so much. Well, Mexico's Central America now. They won't explain that to me. But especially if you come from North America, you had smoke blown up your ass ever since, well, let's face it, World War II, that you are a part of the greatest country in the whole goddamn world and you deserve better, which you do. You are a member of the human race and you are a slave to no other man, so you do deserve better. But, you know, there's shades of that. But once again, that's a much broader topic than we could ever hope to encompass here on Monday Night Chaos. Maybe Tuesday Night Chaos is more appropriate. I don't know. I am not an anthropologist, so I'm not about to make it seem as though I'm an expert in the field. What I do know is that you bitching and complaining about young kids is nothing new. I'm always surprised by that when I see there's YouTubers I watch. I'm not going to name names. But there's some people watching this program right now bitching and complaining about the young kids that don't understand. They just don't get it. And you sound just like your fucking parents and your grandparents when they were of a similar age. And probably even further back than that. But probably not much further back than that because people had the decency to die when they were like 34, you know, because they ate all of the buffalo and for a multitude of other reasons. But yeah, you sound just like your parents and your grandparents and maybe your great-grandparents because everyone thinks that, oh, I'm a gentle snowflake and no one understands me and things were better when I was a kid. Fuck you. Things are exactly the same as they were when you were a kid. The only difference is the internet shoves it down your throat every minute of every day and of your own volition. You look at this shit on purpose. So fuck you. You're the one who's the mark in this whole thing. If it was really bothering you that much, you'd turn it off. I promise you. Don't be like those old people who are addicted to the 6 o'clock news, and that's why they don't fucking know anything when they're in their 60s and 70s, because they only know what the fear mongers have propagated on the television or the screen that's in front of you right now. I'm not here to preach fear. I'm here to preach understanding and a lack of tolerance for bullshit because, well, you've heard me talk about bullshit. You know what that's all about. Anyway. Let me see here. Okay. I guess that's all for the questions for right now. So I guess we're going to talk about the Royal Rumble. And if you guys don't want to talk about wrestling, that's okay. I'm not talking about wrestling either. I'm talking about WWF, which has not been wrestling for a really long time. But we give them the benefit of the doubt. And a lot of people want to know, a lot of my wrestling friends, I'm friends with a lot of wrestlers and people who promote in wrestling and things like that. And they say, well, what do you expect? It's a man's soap opera. No, it isn't. Knock that shit off. That stupid shit that is propagated by the internet is by you repeating it, you're just allowing it to continue. If you don't care about wrestling, then, you know, the next few minutes are going to be rather boring to you. But that's my feeling on professional wrestling is that it's, for instance, if you guys didn't know this, what the Harlem Globetrotters do is also sports entertainment. It's not a genuine competition. And the Monster Jam, the Monster Trucks, is not a genuine competition. That is a show that vaguely resembles a sport. What I appreciate, and I don't really care for either of those programs. The Harlem Globetrotters I like, but I like to watch, you know, genuine basketball. And when I say genuine basketball, I mean college basketball. If you believe the NBA is 100% legitimate, I'd like to point you to, you know, C-SPAN and politics. If you really want to, if you really want to have a discussion of reality versus fiction. But anyway, I don't so much care for those things. But what I do appreciate is they at least have the, I'll say decency to pretend for you that what they're doing is a sport. The World Wrestling Federation has continuously tried to throw that out. All the while, there's a certain number of wrestling purists. I don't know if I'm a wrestling purist, but who stick around and watch the program every so often. But before we get too far along, I want to say, I told you. A number of people have been asking me for weeks, who do you think is going to win the Royal Rumble? And I told you, Roman Reigns. I knew Roman Reigns was going to win months ago, and I don't even watch the program. Just by the whisperings going on, I knew Roman Reigns was going to win because I saw the way they were setting him up. And you know, he's like the Ultimate Warrior without the buzz. You know, he looks good and he seems like he could be the guy, but there's really nothing else there. But we'll get to that in a minute. I want to break it down match by match. We'll get into the overall program. I started watching the program live, and we had a few hiccups, so I got to miss the pre-show. And upon watching the highlights of it, I didn't get a chance to watch the entire match. The opening contest of was it Cesaro and Tyson Kidd versus the New Day. If you didn't know, the New Day is all the black people, with the exception of R-Truth and the World Wrestling Federation. And the New Day is the Nation of Domination 2.0. But with a much heavier, shall I say, underhanded left-wing Muslim message, but it isn't. You know, it's very, very half-assed. You know, but it's very much a tribute to the Nation of Domination, and not in a positive way. You'll notice that they wear the same colors that Farouk, Ron Simmons, wore when he first came and started the Nation of Domination. You'll notice that their outfits are very much reminiscent of the outfit they gave him, which was a fucking ridiculous outfit in the first place. But I didn't get to see a lot of that match. But some of the more talented workers, you know, Kofi Kingston, Big E's, you know, he's got his moments. I like Big E. Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. Some of the biggest talent they have at that level did the pre-show. And I saw it was actually a halfway decent match. I didn't get to see all of it, so I'm not going to pretend like I saw the whole thing. And yeah, it was a clinic and match of the year, and it was far more a clinic and close to being match of the year than that fucking atrocity that was the World Heavyweight Championship match. We'll get to that in a second. Following that, I want to talk about this. You guys have been asking me what I think about these guys, the Ascension. And I had never heard of these guys because I turned off the program back in I want to say August. I stopped watching, and I don't pay for it either, and I still don't care. But I stopped following because Michael Cole sucks. I'm sorry. I like John Layfield. I wish he would make up his mind whether, you know, he kind of plays this in-betweener thing that doesn't work for a douchebag of his magnitude. So when he's good, and when he sucks, he really sucks. You know, it's like the difference between good Bobby. Like, it's like the difference between Bobby Heenan with Gorilla Monsoon versus Bobby Heenan with Tony Schiavone. You know, it's when it's good, it can stand on its own. Other times, it just falls flat. And Jerry Lawler, who I love very much, but he cannot make up for the fact that Michael Cole has no idea what he's talking about. Michael Cole cannot tell the difference between a German suplex and a belly-to-back suplex. And there's a world of difference to anyone who would know anything about wrestling. But he doesn't. He's not even very good at commentating on what he sees. I don't understand the appeal there, but I'm not gonna speculate. But I want to talk about the Ascension. And I'd heard people tell me about, yeah, they're kind of like the knockoff Road Warriors. And I said, well, the Road Warriors, you know, I'm like, are they wearing the spikes? And I never got around to it. I didn't care. I did not even care enough to sit and type into Google and ask Google what the Ascension is until right before the program began. To be truthful, I was kind of playing guitar throughout most of the program. So I was kind of half paying attention, but I didn't understand what the opening match was. The Ascension, Conor and Victor, I think that's how it's pronounced, versus the New Age Outlaws. Now, for me, this match was over before it started because they beat me over the head with this package showing these young guys get their fucking dicks handed to them by the New World Order, the APA, Degeneration X, these dudes that are twice their age on national television. 3 million people watch Monday Night Raw. I want to say like 200,000 people saw the Royal Rumble. So you made these guys look like shit on national television and then put them to open up a pay-per-view. Well, that already started off on a sour note. And throughout the whole match, you can tell Billy Gunn is trying to gas these two. Billy Gunn is as good as ever. He is, I mean, I'd say, compared to how, 85 to 90%, he can still go about close to 90% of what he used to. You know, he slowed down a little. He telegraphs a little bit, but also he's working with these young guys who are used to everything being telegraphed to them. Not just the moves, but the fucking stories. You know, I see these young wrestlers who are younger than me. you know, and I think I'm not very sharp. So how smart could these guys be? Apparently not very smart, because they were taught how wrestling works by Vince Russo. And I don't want to talk about Vince Russo for very long, but, you know, Vince Russo fucking telegraphed all the storylines he wrote and the way he influenced professional wrestling to everything. Well, you were beaten over your fucking head with every last bit of detail to where it wasn't even interesting anymore. So that's what Billy Gunn's having to work with. And these guys, I get this idea that Billy was going into business for himself and was trying to gas these cats because they were just slow and they couldn't do anything and they were looking tired like a minute or two in. And the Road Dogg comes and does his thing, and he does the, the shake, rattle, and roll, or not the shake, rattle, and roll, but he does the, that stunt thing that he does, and he goes out, and then Billy Gunn starts gassing these guys. Starts gassing these guys again, and then I almost feel like it looked like somebody told him, okay, now roll over and play dead, and they did an assisted leg sweep. I guess they have to call it what do you call it? It's some sort of a, dual finisher, but it was actually just an assisted leg sweep. And then Billy Gunn just, lays down after beating the hell out of these guys, half his age, just lays over and takes the finish. And we know it's to put them over. And I hate to dissect it like this, but it was just disgusting. It was terrible. After that was the World Wrestling Federation Tag Team Championship match involving the Usos, who are the Rikishi, or for those of you who go way back, Samu from the Head Shrinkers, Fatu from the Head Shrinkers, his boys. And I like them for that reason and that reason alone, unfortunately. They're not very charismatic boys. They are talented. They are quite the acrobats, especially for their size. They're pretty tall cats for as fast as they move. But they don't really have any genuine charisma. I think they're over because they are Rikishi's kids, and you can ask David Sammartino how well that works out. It seems like that's the only reason anybody gets over now is because, you're somebody's kid, and all the accomplished wrestlers like Davey Boy Smith's son gets shit on. I don't understand why that works. But they went against The Miz and Damien Sandow. The Miz is a fucking waste of a paycheck, and Sandow is a waste of an apron space. I'm not going to bore you with the details of Damien Sandow being his storyline stunt double. It embarrasses me. It embarrasses the sport. I don't even want to talk about it. It hurts my feelings. It drives me to drink. It does. But they put on a completely run-of-the-mill match that I saw them have. It looked exactly like the match they'd had where the titles changed hands the first time between them. Just an absolute abortion, and I thought it stank. And, no heat. By this point, we're almost halfway through the show, and... Oh, excuse me. By this point, we're almost halfway through the show, and I said this on my Facebook about watching this program and listening to the audience. I've heard more applause at a funeral. There was just nothing going on. It seemed like they were intentionally being quiet, which made me wonder, why are you people here? Those tickets couldn't be cheap. I also want to bring up the fact that this was not a sellout show, by the way, at the Philly Civic Center or something. I think it was the Philadelphia Civic Center. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the attendance there is something like 20,100, something like that. And they sold, I think, like 17,200. Close, but not a sellout, and not a particularly large building, which goes to show some adjustments may have been made. Papered and otherwise. If you don't know what I mean, tough. Following that, there was the Bella Twins, a Divas match. Divas, I'm so sick and fucking tired of that shit. But it does kind of work out because you have a whole bunch of girls who can't fucking wrestle, so you don't want to call them wrestlers. The Bella Twins, whatever, versus Paige, whatever her name, that fucking bitch. She sucks. I mean... You can cover up being a shitty wrestler for a while, but this bitch has been around for a couple of years now. And somebody take this bitch out in the sun. She looks like old white chocolate. Somebody do something about this immediately. And also, all the zippers and metal bullshit on her outfit is going to get somebody hurt. But whatever. Her, along with Natty Neidhart, or they call her Natalia, but Jim Neidhart of the Hart Foundation, his daughter, Luckily, she turned out a lot better looking than Jim the Anvil. But they put on another fucking abortion, and I absolutely love Natty Neidhart. I think I have a crush on her because she is Jim Neidhart's daughter, and that might sound strange, but fuck you, I can have whatever fantasies I want. She's also about my age, so it works, which is impressive to me, that she's working in this business that, thanks to, you know, whoever runs talent relations for the Divas division, all girls much younger than, you know, girls in their early 20s, and Natty Neidhart is like, you know, 32, 33, and, you know, it's a good looking lady. And yeah, it was a shitty match. I'm sorry. Then after that was the triple threat match. Now I have, you know me, you guys, if you've seen this program at all, you know me, that I'm very touchy about triple threat matches, because triple threat matches, which are different than triangle matches, which are different than three-way dance matches, triple threat match implies a very serious feud is going on here. And this feud, there was no feud that I really saw. Brock Lesnar, who is the douchebag who's getting paid to be a douchebag, and for some reason needs the douchebag that is Paul Heyman, because I'm going to say something very controversial. You know, Brock Lesnar sounds like a little bitty girl. He's a little girly man, you know, and that they don't let him talk, and everybody hates Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman is starting to look like a cross between a dark-haired Alfred Hitchcock and Droopy Dog. I'm not sure how that works, but look at him. It's disgusting. Hello, folks. There you go. Paul Heyman, ladies and gentlemen. And they had, I couldn't believe this. I heard talk about people, a match of the year. This was an absolute awful match, and no one's going to say it, but I'm going to say it. John Cena worked his dick off to get this to look like a wrestling match. You'll notice that the first, I mean, I couldn't believe how I read some of the reviews, and the reviews ran really quickly. The reception was there immediately. People were impressed by this. I'm like, you were impressed by 47 suplexes, a bump onto a briefcase, and a coast-to-coast, and a fake stretcher job? For those of you who don't know, Brock Lesnar did they did a stretcher job on him on ice, and I could tell immediately the way they kept focusing on the face and the eyeballs of both, excuse me, of Brock Lesnar as well as Paul Heyman, that this is a fake stretcher job. He did not have the eyeball. Like they kept showing his face. If someone's seriously hurt, you don't show their face, because that adds to the illusion. So I'm like, this is they're gonna do a fake stretcher job. You could tell he was just, and what does that say? Your immortal champion who can't do anything except punch and throw 47 suplexes had to fake a stretcher job? I mean, this is who you're putting your ugly ass belt on, Vince? It was disgusting. It was terrible, and it made the belt look like shit. It made John Cena look like shit. It made Brock Lesnar and his championship reign look like shit. Like the streak wasn't breaking, if the streak wasn't bad enough. And I'm sick and fucking tired of Seth Rollins. This cat didn't do shit. He looks like shit. He works like shit. And jumping off a fucking turnbuckle with a briefcase is not my idea of, you know, talent. So anyway, now moving on to the Royal Rumble. I know we spent a lot of time on the Royal Rumble, but if you didn't want to talk about it, I don't think you guys would be here, would you? Anyway, yeah, getting it right out of the way. Of course, Roman Reigns did win, but let's walk through the Rumble really quickly there, because there were some high points. The Rumble itself had some serious high points. I shouldn't say serious high points, but had some high points. And I want that to be known. This was actually a halfway decent Rumble. Unfortunately, and I'm going to have to agree with certain people, the outcome, the way that it wrapped up, you know, kind of overshadowed the special things that kind of went on. Our contest opened with R-Truth rapping for some fucking reason. He's a talented worker and really needs something different. Otherwise, he's going to be the new Tito Santana, and the world cannot afford another Tito Santana. And The Miz, who sucks. Following him was a surprise. Following R-Truth was a surprise Bubba Ray Dudley. I don't mean to ruin this for you guys, but it's already ruined, so fuck it. Turn it off if you don't, turn me off if you don't want to hear it. Then there was Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt and all that bullshit, and fuck all that noise. And And then Curtis Axel got beat up by Eric Rowan. I'm not going to walk you through the whole list, but the surprises included the Boogeyman, and there came a point when Bray Wyatt and the Boogeyman tried to out-weird each other, and they gave Bray Wyatt the Diesel spot. I call it the Diesel spot when he was, there was a spot in, I think, like the 94 Royal Rumble where Diesel was just dieseling everybody out, the lone man in the ring. And every couple of Rumbles, it seems like almost every Rumble now, somebody gets that spot where they get to knock the fuck out of everybody and be the man, the king of the hill for, 7 to 12 minutes, which what that really does is actually artificially lengthens and he gets Bray Wyatt gets a microphone during this whole thing and cuts a fucking promo during the fucking match. Anyway, but and someone gets that opportunity. Why it was big tubby Bray Wyatt, I have no fucking clue. I'm more imposing looking than Bray Wyatt. Shit. I don't know who's going in for this whole, Blackjack Mulligan Jr. shit, but whatever. I think it's just Vince McMahon making fun of Southern white people. That's what I think. I don't want to bore you with all the details. Another surprise was Diamond Dallas Page. And DDP looking pretty good for being, I think, 60 or more. I could be mistaken, but yeah, 60 or more, I think. And looking pretty decent. Of course, shilling for DDP Yoga across his jersey. Good for him. But he did very well. He actually hung in there for quite some time, and I was impressed by that. And then following him was Rusev, and Rusev, another lost opportunity. This battle royal to me really reeked of all the lost opportunities throughout the year, the things they could have done with all these people last year, and didn't do anything. Eventually, Roman Reigns, the winner, made his way in. Big E made his way in, and I don't know what it is. I wanted to talk about this. I don't know what it is about these two, but Big E and Rusev have this really strange chemistry to when they get together and they just start throwing each other around and punching and throwing suplexes. It might look boring on the surface, but for some reason, they have a way of looking at each other. They make it look really intense, and I could be totally mistaken. You guys might think I'm wrong. And for someone who claims to enjoy technical wrestling as much as I do, they have this weird chemistry that I like watching them work. It's kind of interesting. And it was very much reminded me of the almost forgotten feud years ago between the model Rick Martel and Jake the Snake Roberts. They immediately have the you thing and can just really tell a quick little story that will have no bearing on the end of the match, but it's something to be enjoyed. And I think they have a really interesting chemistry when they work together. Then following that was Damian Sandow, who got to wrestle for all of 9 seconds. That along with the elimination of Daniel Bryan really can. If I haven't made this clear, I think Daniel Bryan sucks. I really do. I shouldn't say he sucks. I mean, he's a sound wrestler, but I don't buy him in the superhero capacity. And the dun, 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 yes thing is fucking over. It was over when it started. So as a regular patron to indie wrestling shows, I'm sick and fucking tired of yes and I hate that shit. I really, really, really do. And then later in the evening, Jack Swagger, the real American Jack Swagger, who is a talented wrestler but has no general charisma to speak of, did the "We the People" salute spot. Everybody, and just like Ryback and a lot of people, everyone just feels the need to lean back on their catchphrases, and that's disgusting. That goes to show that there's nothing special about you. You. Like even Cosmo Kramer had more than one, hook. It's just, whatever. Jack Swagger and Rusev had a little bit of thing. They had a interesting micro feud earlier or late last year or middle of last year. And it eventually just devolved into nothingness. But those guys also, I like Rusev. They're never going to do anything with him, much like Kofi Kingston. But I like Rusev. And I like Jack Swagger. But and I didn't when I first saw Jack Swagger. But so they had their thing going, and then Kane and the Big Show show up, and Wade Barrett got treated like shit. And in the end, Roman Reigns, your winner, who was being pummeled by Kane in the Big Show, and then magically from out of nowhere, before I get to the finish, I must say that one of the high points, you can ask Mrs. Yellkaos, I laughed my dick off at this. Somebody brought a sign, a big sign, like as big as they are. I'm pretty sure they were blocking several rows of viewing, but brought a huge sign of Colt Cabana's head. And if you don't know who Colt Cabana is, then this won't really affect you. On the other hand, if you do know who Colt Cabana is, you will laugh your dick and or labia off. I didn't want to leave I know there's young ladies out there, and I don't want anyone to feel left out. You will laugh it right the fuck right off, and you'll have to have it sewn back on. So that shit was hilarious. And then these two guys who were pummeling Roman Reigns suddenly gets these two old guys, because let's face it, the Big Show and Kane are old. And they just magically fall over the top rope, and that's the end of the show. And people are either saying nothing or are booing the piss and shit out of Roman Reigns. And I don't mean like just like, regular booing, like booing like the way they used to boo Jerry Lawler. Booing the shit out of Roman Reigns, and they were cheering for Dean Ambrose. I don't understand how Dean Ambrose is more over than fucking Roman Reigns. I've never got the whole Dean Ambrose thing. He's greasy and balding. He's like Stone Cold Steve Austin before he was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He always strikes me as like a cross between Stone Cold Steve Austin and I can't remember what's that other thing. If I remember it, I'll bring it up. But anyway, let's get off Dean Ambrose. I think he's a fucking waste of a spot too. And that didn't work, so they had to do the "if you smell," and The Rock came out with his big fat ham slice wrinkly neck and saved the day and did his fucking his pose down, because he's the new Hulk Hogan, folks, whether you realize it or not. And even that wouldn't do it. They began to boo The Rock because he tried to help. That's like setting a firefighter on fire with a flamethrower from across the street. That's cold-blooded. But anyway, and that was your 2015 WWF Royal Rumble. I know I spent a long time on that, so let's get to some questions and have a little conversation before we get out of here. And thank you for sitting through all of that. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys did too. So what else? Let me see. I'm going to go back through the questions real quick, make sure I didn't miss anything, because I was busy looking at notes for the Royal Rumble discussion. Kit 171 wants to know if I've ever seen Penn and Teller at the Rio anytime I've been to Las Vegas. No, that is an expensive show, brother. That is some money to see that show. And I've seen it on YouTube, and it's like, oh, that's cute. Would I pay $85 to see that? No. I mean, because that's some serious money. And I got my fill of them when they were doing the night shift on TNT. So, and I also like their Showtime show Bullshit, even though it was not the greatest program, even though there's friends of mine who would disagree. But no, never seen them. There's a number of big shows in Las Vegas I've never gone to see, frankly, because let me itch my nose here. Sorry. Frankly, because they're expensive and I don't see them being worth it. Or my time for that matter, and all the bullshit you have to go through just to get into a show in Las Vegas. They got to usher you in at a certain time before the show, and I don't like dinner shows, and a lot of them are dinner shows, and I don't get like the whole Cirque du Soleil thing. If you're going to go see the circus, go see a real circus. Why would you go see a fake elegant circus? I don't, it's not my speed. The pilot says, Anita Sarkeesian made me hate women. Well, I hate women too. I like girls, but I hate women too, so don't feel bad. Let me see here. Blah, 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 blah. Silent Soldier 101 wants to know my thoughts on the new Star Wars Battlefront. I was unaware there was a new Star Wars Battlefront. Let me check it out and I'll get back to you. Let me see here. Let me see. Hold on a second. Hold on a second here. Oh, and you guys went into great detail. What was the other one here? Oh, well, I guess that was the end of the questions, wasn't it? So anyway, unless you guys got some other questions, I guess I can get out of here a little bit early. Who am I kidding? I'm not getting out of early. I came on late. So yeah, did I mention that this program was brought to you by the Fuck Tom Petty Foundation? Because Mr. Tom Petty, you do not own harmonic intervals. I just want to make that known. Also brought to you by liquor. Which is true on different levels for different reasons, I suppose. Yeah, I just come here so I can get a laugh. You know, you guys, you know, I don't know if you guys are laughing, but this is a great time for me. Also, while you guys want to ask a few more questions, and here come the questions. I want to remind you to follow me on the Facebook and on the Twitter. That's right, I'm shilling. This is Shameless Plug Central right here on the Yellkaos program. I want to remind you to click all the links down below and follow me because there's a good time to be had. especially if you're willing to pay. Palkia Spammer wants to know, what do I think of the band X Japan? I think X Japan are some of the ugliest pretty men I've ever seen in my life. A legendary band, absolutely. I enjoy a lot of their material, not all of their albums, because some of their stuff really does descend into just all-out glam rock, which I'm not opposed to glam rock, but glam rock a lot of times are just ordinary songs, you know, mediocre songs that are enhanced by the visual appeal of the band, much like a lot of Kiss songs. So that's a shame. But that's what I think when people say glam rock. It's like, oh, so you mean men with lipstick playing mediocre rock and roll, which is interesting because I think that's what they call indie rock nowadays. Speaking of which, let me talk about, I was bitching at my wife about this, and I figured I should tell you guys. Can you guys help me and spread the information that indie is not a music genre? Okay, I'm so sick and tired of people saying, what kind of music? Oh, we're indie. We're indie rock. Indie is not a genre. Indie is a financial situation. That's really that's what indie means. You're poor, you know, and by that definition, almost the entire heavy metal subgenre of rock and roll is indie music. So let's stop generalizing, shall we? If we're going to be specific, let's be goddamn specific. At least a little more than indie. If you are not poor or Indiana Jones, or, you know, that doesn't make any sense. But if you're Indiana Jones, you know, my hat's off to you. No time for love, Dr. Jones. Let me see here. Lone Wolf Warrior said, what's a good game to play on a rainy day? Well, any game's good to play on a rainy day. My favorite are the Pikmin games. I like those games on a rainy day. As a matter of fact, it's a rainy day here in California, and which is probably why it's so dark in this room. But, well, it's also nighttime. Yeah, nighttime tends to help it be dark. It's been a while. But the Pikmin games, I can't tell you why, are so much fun on a rainy day. They really are. And then the other one I like on a rainy day on my Xbox 360 is Hydro Thunder, because, you know, racing plus water can't possibly be a bad thing. So those are two great games that I love to play on a rainy day, is any of the Pikmin games or Hydro Thunder. Let me see. How do you feel about the Joe Satriani versus Coldplay lawsuit in comparison to the Tampa? What? Joe Satriani is going against Coldplay? So, well, I'll research that after the program. I promise. But I don't. One thing I will say, as one of my platforms when I become your president, if you are a citizen of the United States, as your president, I will basically remove all enforcement of copyright law. I will not remove copyright law because that would take a lot of time and a lot of lawyers and a lot of effort to, you know, a lot of money to be spent to change laws that don't need to exist in the first place. So I would encourage lax enforcement on copyrights, because I don't believe in copyrights. As I've said before, the guarding of intellectual property is not the job of government. A similar attitude is taken in Japan, and I think should be applied in this country. The only reason you have all these houses on the hill with these big fat cat motherfuckers who have millions and billions of dollars is because they've used the law to make sure that they make money off of other people's property. Because you're not copyright law does not protect the artist, it protects the publisher and allows this bullshit to go on. But I will look up on that thing with Joe Satriani. I'll let you know how I feel about it, and I don't want to think that Joe Satriani's a bad guy or whoever represents him or whatever. This might, you know, we'll find out. But I do not, as a rule, do not support copyright law in its current form. But the work to undo all the laws would be a lot of time, money, effort, energy that could be better spent somewhere else. For all the time and money that is spent enforcing copyright, we could have solved homelessness in this country by now. We could have handled hunger. We'd be able to educate our young people. We'd be able to house our old people. For all the money that is being spent, government dollars spent to uphold private interests, private corporate interests, I might add, that are not subject to any of our laws. Similar to the feelings I have about religious people who want to make a stand in this fucking country. If you want to make a fucking stand for what you believe on Capitol Hill and throughout this country, pay taxes. That's your admission fee for getting to say whatever you want. If you don't pay your taxes, if you don't contribute to this country, then who are you? You're a freeloader. Me, I'm against taxation, but I'm not one of these kind of people that expects the government to do my bidding either, until I am your president, and then things will surely change, at least a little. I'm not going to promise a lot of change. You know, you'll get a couple of things. We won't always get what we want. Why? The same reason why Barack Obama was not the savior to all the white people who wanted to believe that they love black people. Because changing one face does not make that much of a difference. But it can affect a little bit of difference. And if it can affect a difference in one person and then another, that's where change comes from. Change does not come from by the describing of a pen or by the voting in of a face. It's a collective effort. If you think that you can still shop at Walmart and support that monolith, that destructive force, if you can still sit on your ass and eat these fucking chemicals that are in your food, watch this bullshit on TV that brainwashes you and your children to not care about your fellow man, then what can you expect? Garbage goes in, garbage comes out. What were we talking about? I'm sorry. I went off on something else. I'm terribly sorry. Joe Satriani sued Coldplay. I'll get in on that. I will. The pilot dropped. He dropped it on the Facebook. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'll look at that. Sarkeesian just called out Alpha Omega Sin on Twitter. Who cares? Should I? You tell me. Should as your future president? Should I rally to Alpha Omega Sin's aid? I could probably get some publicity out of it. In fact, you know what? Razor Fist watches the program. I know he does. He's watching me right now. He's putting on his eyeliner before he goes out. He goes out on Monday nights. He's a tough guy like that. Fist, we should lambast the fuck out of this bitch. We'd get so much free publicity out of it. You know we would. And Silent Rob watches the program too. You know, so Rob, if you're what we this could be it. We could lambast the fuck out of this bitch. She called down the thunder, and now she got it, right? Yeah. Soon I'm gonna be famous. All right, let me see here. Lewis Williams wants to know Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen. Well, Eddie Van Halen, naturally, he's had an actual career. If you weren't with us on the last program, I talked about Randy Rhoads in great detail about how he has been dead longer than he was alive. And a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, but Randy Rhoads was a 24-year-old punk who stumbled across a couple of great ideas with a guy that had a lot of publicity on him at the time and has been struggling to maintain that publicity ever since. Randy Rhoads is overrated. I'm sorry. You know, Randy Rhoads could have had a fruitful career. The same feeling I have about Jimi Hendrix. I appreciate Jimi Hendrix for what he did in the context of when he did it and of what it is. I appreciate the songs for what they are. But I don't think that Jimi Hendrix, the real fact that Jimi Hendrix is a lot like Richie Valens and Randy Rhoads and people like that, is that they died before they had a chance to really fuck up, much like other guitar players like Richie Kotzen, who, you know, were around long enough to show their true colors. Unlike that of Stevie Ray Vaughan, though. Stevie Ray Vaughan was born, rose to fame, fucked up, and then reattained, you know, grace, and then passed away. Which is really how you want to go out. Similar to how I hope that Hulk Hogan dies in the ring at WrestleMania 31. Not that I want Terry to die, but I want Hulkamania to die gracefully. Because carrying it on and 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 on is a disservice to you and to me and to Hulk Hogan, as well as Titan Sports and Terry Bollea. So, let me see here. Let me see here. Oh, was that it? Oh, you guys, you ran out of things for me to talk about. Well, I'm going to have a couple of more drinks, then I'm going to have another sip here, and then we're going to get out of here. But I want to remind each and every one of you to like it on the Facebook, like me on the Facebook, and the Twitter, and also follow the Hate Bit podcast. There's links down below, so go check that out, please. I beg of you. And pretty soon we're going to lambaste Anita Sarkeesian and get ourselves involved in some sort of a political turmoil, and then we will really be the dominant video game podcast on the internet. I have to say that. So anyway, oh, Mangaka J wants to know most anticipated game of 2015. Well, it seems like all the games are coming out in 2015, holiday 2015, right? I'm excited for a lot of games, really, but frankly, most of them are first and second party Nintendo games. Chief among them being Splatoon, the new Legend of Zelda, and the new Star Fox. I thought I talked about that. I think we talked about that last week, but yeah, maybe you weren't here. So anyway, friends, enemies, well-wishers, otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Frauen and Männer, Frauen und Männer, and so on and so forth. I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to Monday Night Chaos, and hope to do this again very soon. So I'll see you next time. I also want to remind you to, again, subscribe if you haven't. Look at all that information down below, and like me on the Facebook and the Twitter. Shill, I know, because that's what we do. And I want to remind you, you guys are great, and I am Yellkaos, and I am running for president. Thank you very much. Good night.